What's going on, everybody? We are back. Intersection 2024. What a half a day. I am thrilled, super excited to be wrapping up Intersection today for all of you in giving this presentation. I am thrilled and want to do a bit of a quick shout out to a lot of the people behind the scenes. Chris, major shout out for the first keynote. You did an amazing job talking about AI and sharing some of the lessons that you've learned chatting with actual experts. It's very important that we go direct to the source. If you haven't checked out some of Chris's work, check out Foundation Labs. We publish research and insights around things that are happening in marketing all the time. Him, as well as some of his colleagues like Ethan, have published some amazing assets that I encourage everyone to check out. In addition to that, James joined me on the fireside chat. Thank you, James, for joining. James oversees a lot of the strategy work that we do with our partners every single day at Foundation. And it's always refreshing to hear James's take on where things are going and the shifts that are happening at large in the wonderful world of marketing. That was facilitated by Leah Henderson. And you didn't hear a lot of Leah from Leah, but major kudos to Leah for hosting Intersection. She's been behind the scenes planning, prepping, preparing, ensuring that I'm on time, ensuring that I am taking care of my slides and getting everything set up. So major kudos and thank you to Leah, who is behind the scenes, making sure that Intersection 2024 happened without a hitch. And thank you all for coming. Today, we're going to jump in and discuss how you thrive amidst all of the chaos. I also want to give a quick shout out to Goldcast, which is the platform that we ran Intersection 2024 on. If you're not familiar with Goldcast, we encourage you to check it out. They have a new functionality and a feature that we're looking forward to giving a test run on ourselves, where you're able to essentially record a podcast, record a session like this, and then chop it up and turn it into everything from blog posts to micro video assets. You can tell just from that alone that they are very much in line with the way that we think at Foundation around creating something once and then distributing it forever. If you haven't checked out the book, that's another shameless plug. All right, let's jump into it. I am excited to jump in and share with you today a session where I'm going to take you back into time a little bit to discuss some of my favorite things. Mr. Dress Up, shout out to the Canadians on the call, Bill Nye the Science Guy, Miss Frizzle, Mr. Rogers. Those are some of the people, LeVar Burton, like these are some of the people that brought me up in many ways as a kid to make me obsessed with this idea of just like following my imagination. And the best combo ever of all time had to be the combination of blending those shows with things like Dunkaroos. So to speak, like whether it was Dunkaroos or Goldfish, like that was my jam. If you put me in front of a TV with Miss Frizzle, some Dunkaroos, I would chill for hours. And that combination of entertainment and sweets and treats has forever been something that resonates with young people and old people as well. Like, I don't know if anyone knows who Miss Rachel is, but I can give my little ones Miss Rachel some Bluey as well and Goldfish, and they will just be glued to the TV for hours and have no issues. Now, I'm not here to talk about parenting. I'm not here to talk about any of that. And you're probably wondering, Ross, what are you talking about? Like, what does this have to do with digital marketing? Well, let me break it down for you. So when you think about that combination, you're essentially talking about entertainment and carbs, right? In the Roman days, and I'm taking you back, if you've ever seen that meme about how often do guys think about the Roman Empire, personally, not that much until I went to Italy, and then I became obsessed, so obsessed that I started to do a bunch of research on the downfall of the Roman Empire. And it turned out that during the downfall of the Roman Empire, there's this thing happening called the carbs and circus. What is the carbs and circus? The bread and circus, so to speak. I call it the carbs and circus. So throughout this, I might say the carbs and circus. Essentially, the people who were running the Roman Empire decided that they were going to give the people within Rome free bread, free carbs, and have free circus acts shown all the time, right? And because they were going to give these things away, people would notice that the politicians were corrupt, that everything was crumbling around them, that there was a lot of distrust in the ways that their systems were running. They didn't clue in to any of that, right? So the same way that the Carbs and Circus can do a great job at distracting kids and keeping them quiet, the Carbs and Circus can do a good job at adults, keeping them focused where you want them to be focused. And I think as an industry, we have fallen victim to eating the carbs and following the circus. What do I mean by that? The SEO industry gets so caught up. The marketing industry gets so caught up when we see pieces go live on sites like Gartner, where they're talking about 50% of consumers are going to limit their interactions with social media by 2025. Or Gartner predicts that search engine volume is going to drop by 25% by 2026 due to AI and virtual robots, virtual agents. And these things get everybody talking. They get the industry talking. They get CMOs to like reduce their budgets on social media, to say, we're no longer investing in SEO. It's going down. Like, this isn't going to work for us. This to me is the bread and circus, right? Like, if people limit their social media interactions by 50% by 2025, we're going to see one of the most fundamental shifts in all consumer behavior that have ever happened in just like 3 years, right? Like 1 year, 2 years, like it's wild. And when this happens, I can only encourage all of us to focus on the real issues, to focus on things like the fact that people are actually losing trust in the sites that we focus on, like Google, more than ever before. That people are actually having slight shifts in the way that they search online, that people are starting to prefer different content formats than they have in the past, that there are more people online than ever before. There are more channels, there's more noise, there's more LLMs, there's more info, there's lots more of everything. And finally, that the speed of change in AI is happening really fast. We need to ignore the carbs and circus. Because look, don't get me wrong, I get that the prediction game is hard, right? But the same folks who made these predictions that search engine optimization is dead, that social media is going to die by next year, they're the same people who predicted that by 2026, we're all going to be using the metaverse to communicate. That ain't happening. It is not happening. I can say with confidence that it is not happening, right? So here's some data to back up why I believe this is the carbs and circus. It's estimated that 32 million US adults have used ChatGPT at some point for work, and 50 million have used it for learning or entertainment. That's a lot of people, but you have to understand some of the key words within this stat, that they have used it, right? 32 million people have used it. 50 million have used it for entertainment. 71 million US consumers use Google to find businesses every single day. The spectrum here is significant, right? So yes, ChatGPT is a game-changing technology. It is fundamentally going to matter long-term, but the death of Google, the death of SEO is highly, highly overestimated, right? There's no question that AI matters. At Foundation, we do research all the time to better understand how we can serve our clients, how we can serve the brands that we work with. And we study the trends, we study culture, we study these things to make informed decisions around how brands should be investing their content, marketing budgets, their branding budget, their marketing budget, their research budget, all of those things. One thing that we've been looking at is Reddit. And we recently started to recognize, probably 5 years ago, but it's been something that we've been monitoring consistently, is that subreddits can give you an insight into trends in the things people care about. And one of those subreddits that was created 16 years ago was called Artificial Intelligence. So it's an artificial intelligence subreddit with a bunch of people who are passionate about AI. And most recently, you can see the massive spike. It had less than like 40,000 people subscribing to it in 2020. But then when the launch of ChatGPT, it just skyrocketed, right? And you might think, see, Ross, ChatGPT is changing everything. I hear you. But let's look again at the data. The data says that in March 2023, ChatGPT was at its peak. Lots of posts going up in that subreddit, lots of people commenting on things in the subreddit. The comments were at an all-time high, right? But those posts continued to drop down. The amount of comments have continued to drop down. The amount of posts continue to drop down. So why would they say that these things are going to replace Google? Why would they put that information out there if it's not actually rooted in real data and it's just rooted in some people's opinions? Well, the reason is simple. And I'll steal this quote from a hip hop artist that some of you might be able to connect and figure out. But people and brands publish this because it's provocative, because it gets the people going, right? That is why they press publish on these ideas, because they know that when we see them, we're going to click them, we're going to read them, we're going to consume them, we're going to talk about them, and that benefits their business. So we need to ignore the circus. We need to focus on allowing real data, real insights to guide our opinions and our beliefs. Let me give you some more data. So Google and Microsoft across all of media are dominating the conversation around AI. We looked at this study and it showed that essentially the vast majority of the Substacks posts, so newsletters that are talking about tech, etc., when they are creating this content and they're talking about AI, they're talking about Google and Microsoft at the top of the list, followed by Apple, and then Twitter, and then Amazon, and then YouTube. Now you would think, okay, these are the ones that are investing the most in AI. They must be. Not actually. When you actually look at the estimated number of NVIDIA chips that are being shipped to an end customer, number one is Microsoft, of course. But number two, tied with Microsoft, is Meta. But nobody's talking about Meta in their investment in AI. Why? Why are we sleeping on the fact that Meta, which has millions of users, the largest social media channel in the world, is investing so much in AI? Why is no one talking about that? Right? I don't know. It's probably something to keep an eye on. We did a survey amongst marketers, and we wanted to understand what marketers believed the state and roles and the risk of roles were in marketing for our industry. And the number one role that marketers believe is at risk was content marketers or content writers, followed by email marketers, then graphic designers, right? This is fascinating, right? When we look at that data, we then said, okay, let's go a little bit deeper. And then we found this piece that was done by McKinsey where it said, like, what areas do you think are going to have the largest impact on marketing? 60% of marketers believe that AI is going to have an impact on identifying leads. And at Foundation, we've been toying with a lot of different tools and technologies to support this type of exact thing. Marketing optimization, same thing. So like leveraging AI to support the optimization of assets, personalized outreach. So this is great for GTM teams, sales teams for managing their outreach efforts. These are things that are happening across the board. Now, again, we love data. So I collaborated with the folks over at Live Data Technologies to get a better understanding of over 25,000 SEO job postings. And I had them analyze the rate in which these job postings were going live on LinkedIn. And what they found was that SEO jobs in general are relatively flat. They found that GTM jobs are relatively flat. And the question becomes, why? Why are these things flat? Is it because the market is oversaturated and that they are filled? Or is it because in many ways, organizations have bought into the carbs and circus and said, we don't need these roles anymore? Who knows? I'm not sure. I'm just sharing the macro data. Do with it what you wish. Here's another interesting insight from the research that we found. We found in job postings, there has been, since 2023, a significant spike in the amount of job postings that include AI. So what this all tells me, if I am to step back, is that, okay, there's no question that AI is going to be fundamentally influencing our job. There's no question that AI is going to influence the way we do our work. But when we see stats like this, it should become clear to you that AI might possibly be an area where it's worth you learning a few things about. Can you understand how to use AI tools to do your job more efficiently? Because more and more it's showing up in job postings. And then when you look at the number of jobs that are being reduced or posted on sites like Upwork, it becomes also very clear that things that are a little bit less autonomous are starting to show up even more, showing up more regularly. Like there are more postings for graphic design, for web design. There's less postings for writing. There's less postings for translation, less postings for customer service. So AI is having an impact in a lot of these things, right? Folks, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's no question that AI is taking jobs. This is the first time in ever history that in the US, AI has surpassed immigration as being the number one concern around employment within the entire country, right? This is a chaotic time. But I'm not here to doom and gloom. I'm here to give you some ideas, some solutions, some ways in which you can operate. How do you operate within this? First and foremost, it's simple. I do believe that we all need to recognize that we should always be advocating for better search results. We should always be striving to ensure that we're holding Google accountable, that we're holding these sites accountable, to improve the SERP, to be better, to do all of those things. But what I'm also saying is don't get so caught up in the carbs and circus that you forget about the importance of just creating content, telling stories, creating campaigns that are worth reading, bookmarking, sharing, ranking, and ultimately influencing your ICP so it translates into real business dollars, right? We need to stay true to the fundamentals. And when we stay true to the fundamentals, I have to say, like, this is not just marketing advice, it's kind of life advice. Focus on your circle of control and less focus on your circle of concern. Ross, what does that mean? What's circle of control versus circle of concern? Your circle of concern are the things that capture your attention, distract you from your vision, distract you from your mission, distract you from your number one goal and objective that you're trying to accomplish, but that captures a lot of your energy, right? You don't need to get so caught up in every single algorithm change. Ideally, you have a partner who can help you and share with you when those leaks are happening so you can operationalize and execute on it, right? You don't need to focus on who raised more money in your industry. You don't need to focus on what Elon tweeted today. You don't need to focus on a troll who's coming at your brand in the comments. Like, those are things that are in your circle of concern, but they're not things that you control. What you do control is who you work with, the content you create, the stories you tell, how you distribute them, the partners that you work with, your calendar, the way you allocate your time, the way you allocate your resources, the way you allocate your energy. Those are the things that you control. So let's focus on that, right? And embrace the fundamentals. Embrace this framework that we at Foundation have built into our entire DNA and have ultimately applied to every partner that we have for years. It's a simple philosophy that is rooted in these 4 steps: research, creation, distribution, and optimization. What does that mean? Well, when it comes to research, we need to first understand exactly who we are trying to influence, the stories that would resonate with them, the types of content that they consume. We want to do that, right? We do this by doing things like channel research, understanding how and what subreddits they're actually a part of, and not making the mistake of going to ChatGPT and saying, "Hey, ChatGPT, tell me the 5 subreddits that my ICP is on," and then them giving you a bunch of fake subreddits that don't exist, and then presenting that to you. No, we'll do the actual work required as a strategy team to understand what subreddits your ICP is on. We'll go and find out what podcasts they listen to. We find out what information, what YouTube channels they're subscribed to. All this info we dive into. And then once we have that, we start to put together playbooks around the execution. What do we need to create to influence this audience to drive a goal for the business? Do we need to write long form content, short form content, ebooks, guides, case studies, video content? Do we need to develop case studies that are video-based, testimonials? Do we need to create social graphics? What do we need to develop that is going to facilitate our ideal customer moving through the funnel? And then how do we distribute those stories regularly, right? We need to ensure that the stories that we produce don't just collect dust. We have to distribute them. We have to amplify them, right? This is a lesson that I learned very early on in my career. I had a fantasy football blog that I used to run when I was in university. And at first I thought, oh, okay, if I press publish, people will find me. But then Things changed when I started to distribute them and share them into communities where fantasy football users were spending time. I started to see more traction. I started to see more engagement. At first, I started to just share it on my Facebook, and I'd get 2 likes. One was from my mom and one was from my buddy Matt. And I was like, oh, this is a failure. Distribution doesn't work. But what I didn't realize at the time was my audience wasn't there. They were inside of Facebook groups dedicated to fantasy sports. So when I took that and I started sharing them there, that's when traction happened. Brands need to think the same way. Where is your audience? Are they on LinkedIn? Distribute the content there. Are they on X? Distribute your content there. And then finally, you optimize your content for conversion. You optimize your content with the intent of conversion. And some of you might think, okay, no, we don't optimize for conversion. We're just optimizing for search. Okay. But at the end of the day, why does someone go to search? They go to search with an intent. There's a level of intent. They're trying to find something. And once they find it, ideally, you can optimize that page to have a conversion moment within it that leads to an outcome. That outcome could be that they become a lead magnet, or they download a lead magnet, they submit their email, maybe they become a customer, maybe they request a demo, whatever it might be. At the end of the day, folks, we need to focus on the real issues. We need to focus on the things that matter and that you can do to win in your career and for your companies. There's 5 simple things that I believe we should all view as solutions. Research, follow the data, diversify your investment, embrace the fundamentals, use content distribution, and eradicate content debt. Now, those are a lot of solutions. There's a lot of things that I want to talk about here around why I came to these solutions as being the biggest opportunity for marketers, for brands at large. But I always want to start things with data. So if we ignore the carbs and circus and we focus on data, we might be able to start by looking at where are our audience spending time online. And most US adults today are using YouTube to consume content. 83%. 83% of adults are using YouTube to consume information on a regular basis, followed by Facebook, then Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, LinkedIn, etc. And the numbers continue. So when you see this, depending on your niche, you might be able to identify and say, okay, right. So there's a significant amount of our ICP that is probably using YouTube. Shouldn't we be there? Shouldn't we be using YouTube in some way? Oh, a lot of people, 2 and 3 are Meta properties, Facebook and Instagram. Maybe we should try running some remarketing campaigns on these platforms. Why? Because like Shrek said, humans are just like onions. We have layers. So yes, while from 9 to 5, I might be a professional who's doing business things, from 5 until 10, I might be on Instagram just scrolling through pictures of pizza. And it would be great if I seen an ad that was talking to me as a executive, right? That converts me. I might bookmark it. I might come back to it. Is that an opportunity for you? We need to think about that. We need to think about how the journey doesn't live and die exclusively between the hours of operations for business, but that people are people, and people can navigate to Pinterest. People can navigate to WhatsApp. People can be on Reddit. They can be on all of these things. Think about the channels of influence for your ICP and recognize that it's not just channels that can influence people. Some of the biggest opportunities in B2B are opportunities that B2C saw years ago. For example, we all talk about influencers in B2C world, but it's rarely talked about in B2B. One of the most important figureheads right now in the entire world is T Swift, right? Shout out to the Swifties if there is anyone here who's a T Swift fan. But like when T Swift started to date Travis Kelce, his jersey sales went through the roof, right? He made Travis Kelce famous. I'm kidding. I'm a football fan, so I can make that joke. Nobody who's a football fan get mad at me and start canceling me on the internet because I said that. But either way, Travis Kelce's jersey sales skyrocketed the moment they start to date. Why? Because she has influence. So I want everyone to realize that influencers, aka Taylor Swift, are also influential channels. And it could never be more important to think of this as a part of your marketing mix than today. The reason why is simple. The algorithms have played the greatest bait and switch of all times on brands. All of these platforms have completely played the best bait and switch ever. whether it's Facebook, it's LinkedIn, it's Twitter, all of them, they paid us, they asked marketers to pay to get people to like their page. And then after you got a bunch of likes, you now have to pay to reach the people that liked you. It's wild. I look at posts like this from Google Workspace. They have over 400,000 followers on LinkedIn. 400,000, right? They got 61 reactions, 17 reposts. And I'm petty, so I really wanted to dive into this. And 21 of the people who reposted it were Googlers, right? That's a horrible outcome. But it's an outcome that happens time and time again because brands are playing the game on algorithms without recognizing that if they tapped into their T-Swift and got their T-Swift to comment, their T-Swift to like, to share, etc., or they leveraged a tool that allowed their entire team to comment to spread it even further beyond the 21 teammates, like go across the entire org to get everyone to like it and engage. That's where you can unlock some amazing results, right? So what should you do? What should you do as a marketer? One, there's tools out there that we've seen a lot of success with, where organizations are able to empower their entire org to engage after a post goes live. That is one tactic. Another tactic, though, is to identify influencers within your space and get these influencers to support your content production efforts. You can use tools like SparkToro, BuzzSumo, Audience, PodScan, or good old-fashioned Google search to identify these influencers. Then you want to establish agreements with them that are win-win. From those agreements, you are going to facilitate and essentially build out a community where these people feel like they're a part of the success of this initiative. And then from there, you're going to ensure that when things are happening, you're letting them know, and then you ask them to report on the metrics. And then by doing this, you unlock an opportunity to really start to influence the algorithm, because what's not in your control is that you can't control the algorithm, but you can control the ways in which you show up to influence it. If you still are not bought in, then let me share with you a simple example. When Taylor Swift put up this post on social sharing that she had this new skirt, the sales on this account went through the roof. The skirt sold like wildfire, folks. This is what you have the opportunity to tap into. And if you're still not bought into influencers, then all I can say is you need to shake it off and figure it out, because this is a major win and a major opportunity. That was my only dad joke for the day. But AI is also presenting a ton of opportunity. If you're not familiar with HeyGen is this tool that allows you to create essentially a deepfake. And what you can do now with HeyGen is you can hire the likeness of an AI to create content on your behalf. So you can hire these folks who have created their AI, you can upload their script, and in their script, they can talk about your product, they can share content about your product, and you can create that in the matter of seconds, right? Now, in addition to that, what's interesting is the importance of diversification. In a world where it's becoming more and more difficult to rank in the SERP and capture organic traffic, you have to recognize that the sources of referral traffic to your site should be diversified, right? YouTube, Facebook, Reddit. These are the top 3 referrals or referring sites in the world to publications. So when you see this, it should be telling you, all right, I see that the vast majority of referral traffic to other sites outside of Google is YouTube. Maybe you should be there. When you see that Facebook is driving a lot of referral traffic, maybe you should be there. When you see Reddit showing up number 3, maybe you should be there, right? Understand where your audience is spending time. There's this great report done by HubSpot where they compared B2B to B2C, and they found across the board that B2C and B2B marketers, like when they think of what channels you should be on, they're in many ways pretty close to the same. The only massive gap was associated with LinkedIn, which makes complete sense, right? But this is where you have control. You have control over how many channels you decide to show up on. The average marketer in this survey done by HubSpot said that they were on 3 channels. And my advice is always become great at one channel and then move on to the next one. Start and be great on one and then move on to the next. So some more insight for you all. LLMs will have consumed everything on the internet by 2026, according to a study done by CB Insights. That's wild, right? So everything that is possible to be consumed, to be trained on, it is estimated that by 2026, LLMs are going to run out of high quality data. So what are LLMs going to do? And what am I talking about? Just in case everyone's not on the same page. So ChatGPT, Claude, all of these tools, they are training their brains, their knowledge on content that has been optimized by search, content that exists on the internet, all of the PDFs, all of the books, they're reading them, they're scanning them, and they're using it to be ingested to give it better and more accurate information when you ask it a question. That's the goal. But it's not allowed to touch everything. It's not allowed to go to certain websites. It's not allowed to go to certain things. So they're striking up licensing deals with a lot of publications. They're striking up licensing deals with a lot of UGC websites, user-generated content websites, to give it more info to provide better responses. So when you see that and you're thinking about, okay, how can we show up more in the responses from ChatGPT, maybe you should start thinking, how do we show up more on the channels that they're licensed with or that they might strike a license with later on? There's already a licensing agreement set out with Reddit. Do you have an opportunity to show up in things like Quora, Stack Overflow? They already have a licensing agreement there. Do you have an opportunity to show up in things like Seeking Alpha, Angie, Substack, ZocDoc, where else, right? SlideShare, all of these different things. You should be looking for that. The LLMs are already doing this. So you need to create content that is worth training LLMs on and then distribute it like wildfire. That's my advice. If you haven't checked out the book, take Create Once, Distribute Forever, the book, and apply it to the idea of creating ridiculously valuable content and then distributing it everywhere so the LLMs get trained on your content. If you want to fast forward 4 years, that is where you should be trying to be. You want to create content assets that are so valuable, that are proprietary in nature, that people are scraping it, they're reading it, they're using it. LLMs are doing the same, and then they're using it to ingest back answers to you. But Ross, how do we do that? Like, are you saying that we should create a bunch of content, like just produce? You told us before that we should get off of the hamster wheel of creating. I know. I believe now more than ever, brands should be producing high volumes of high value content, highly valuable content at ridiculous high volumes. Why? Because the LLMs are scraping the internet, looking for high value content, and they're using that to inform their responses. And if you create high value content, Google's going to like it. Now, here's the issue. 2 years later, you fast forward and you've got all of this content that's been published. Some of it's out of date. This happens every single day. It's content debt. You go into a rabbit hole where you start to do things just like this, where you start to say, great, I'm excited, Ross. It's content time. Let's hire a content agency to produce a bunch of content assets. We're creating content. La la na 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 na. Oh no. Now we've got a bunch of content debt behind us because we just went 5 quarters, 2 years producing a bunch of pieces, and we didn't actually think about the fact that the piece that we published 2 years ago might need to be updated with new data and new info, or the competitors that we have in the SERP are going to update their pieces, so our pieces are now out of date, and now we're losing all of our traffic. You're right. That's exactly what happens. That's content debt. It's one of the most dangerous things in the industry as content marketers, but it's something that so many brands make the mistake of. And we do these things called optimizations, where we essentially go in to brands' libraries of content, and we are constantly looking for ways to optimize their content for search engines, for quality and trust, because we are big believers in double EAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. And if those things show up in the assets that we're publishing, then Google's more likely to rank them. Conversion rate optimization, because you can't pay the bills with clicks, you can only pay the bills with revenue. So let's connect our assets back to revenue. Brand guidelines, we want to make sure that your voice is strong and that it sounds like you. We connect all of that in our optimizations. From there, we start to look at Ross's hierarchy of content needs. I claimed this idea many moons ago, and it's important. It's important that when you do that audit and that review of the content in the library, you start to ask yourself, okay, which pieces are going to be the most shareable, linkable, rankable, and have the highest competitors? Which ones are going to have the shortest amount of friction and resources challenges for us to bring it to life? Which ones are in our circle of competence, and which ones are going to drive ROI? And when you can start to identify those and start to figure out, like, these are the ones we should focus on, the way that we work is we start to categorize and plan the assets that are going to be optimized. We get them over to our editorial team, strategists, writers, subject matter experts, all come together to make pieces that are worthwhile, right? And we have checklists that we go through to ensure that the pieces that we create are highly valuable, that they are worth training an LLM on. So, how do you navigate all of this? How do you navigate the importance of being in many places and navigating all of the fact that LLMs are scraping content, that you need to create high value content? How do you continue to win when the buyer's journey is a lot more chaotic as well, right? If you're not familiar with this visual, I recorded a video, it's on my YouTube account, that breaks down the enterprise journey. And I encourage you to check out this video, but essentially it talks through the journey today being more chaotic than ever before. But with this journey comes the requirement of developing stories and empowering your sales teams, your customer success teams, your marketing teams with assets. And I say assets intentionally, with assets that they can use to nurture relationships. And once these assets are created, the next step is simple. You have to distribute them. You have to take these assets and spread them like wildfire. You spread them on the channels where you know your audience is spending time based off of research that you did up front. And you take the book, Create Once, Distribute Forever. If you haven't checked it out yet, I encourage you to do so. It's available on sale on Indigo, on Amazon, on all of these different sites. Strategies on how to take assets and spread them through the internet. The same strategies that I share in the book are the strategies that I used to make the book a #1 Amazon bestseller. Folks, this stuff works. It's the same strategies I used to take Create Once, Distribute Forever, and then apply it to Create Like the Greats and take that podcast and get over 100,000 listens. Like, folks, we do this at Foundation with our own content assets. We recognize the value of writing a blog post and turning that blog post into a thread, turning that thread into a podcast, submitting it into a subreddit, creating a bunch of visuals on the back of it. And this is the framework that you should use. You have content that you develop, you distribute it through channels that you own, you spread it through earned channels, paid channels, and then it reaches your audience. This is the framework, right? And you might be thinking, wow, Ross, you've got so many great frameworks, but let me share with you what I believe is that key element that allows brands to thrive today. We've recognized the importance of human talent, skills, all of those things. But instead of just assuming that people can do all the stuff, we recognize that humans can go further with technology, because that visual you just saw wasn't actually created by me or anyone on my team. I just uploaded a blog post that we've written and told ChatGPT to create a visual around it. Folks, when you combine insights gathered by humans, research done by humans, with deep understanding and expertise around your space, your niche that you have, combine that with AI, you can do some ridiculously powerful things. I'm not saying don't do SEO. There's no question. You can go to sites like Captora and see how much traffic they're capturing every single day and the value of that traffic, right? They capture, you would have to spend $53,000 to capture as much traffic as Capterra.com does on a monthly basis for the word scheduling software. You would have to spend $33K to capture as much traffic as they do for contact management software, right? You would have to spend that as a brand. That's a lot of money to spend every single month to capture people who are looking for these software. Now you might say, but Ross, what if the LTV for that is 50 grand? Then you just need a couple. I agree. But how can you capture that? You can capture that by creating content assets, just like the folks over at ClickUp have done, that essentially speak to these keywords. This is high value, high volume content. You go after content assets and keywords that are at the bottom of the funnel, and you do this at scale. And then when you do this, you start to realize that The collective of all of these pieces that you produce can be worth millions of dollars worth of organic traffic. You can still win, folks, by embracing the fundamentals. Highly valuable content and highly valuable traffic combined results in amazing wins. But Ross, I noticed something on that screenshot. It was Reddit number 2. That's not a brand. What's up with that? I agree. Reddit is showing up more and more in the SERP than ever before. We did this analysis through Stat, and we found across all of the B2B search queries associated with bottom of funnel, you name the solution, you name the software, Reddit is starting to show up more and more. Since the rollout of the helpful content update, and I don't know if it's actually been that helpful for users or SEOs, but Reddit is just dominating the SERP. It's everywhere, folks, right? It's showing up for queries that traditionally would have been seen as just like blog posts. Backup imaging software, right? 320 people look for that every single month. And one of the top results is from Reddit. Best cloning software, disc cloning, not cloning dogs or anything like that. Like number 1 software or one of the top ranking URLs, Reddit again, right? So when you see this, the question becomes, all right, how do you start to influence it? You start to influence it by distributing your content on Reddit, by understanding the fundamentals of Reddit, researching your audience, and recognizing that now is the time to distribute your content everywhere, whether it's Quora, Reddit, you name it. I want to break this down for you one more time, and then we're going to get into kind of the conclusion piece here. Folks, you can't control the industry. You can't control the algorithm, and you can't control the rise of AI. It's impossible. But you can control what you do with your time. You can control whether or not you start to really embrace the idea of creating high value content, sprinkling a whole bunch of creativity on it, and ignoring the carbs and circus. I want you to steal our digital framework and apply it within your organization. I want you to steal it and use it every single day. Print it off, take a screenshot, grab it, put it on your desk, whatever you need to do to ingrain in your mind the importance of doing research, creating great content, distributing it relentlessly, and then optimizing it for conversion. Because when you do that and you combine it with the modern enterprise journey, you are going to set yourself up for success. You're going to set yourself up for success because you're going to be able to get more touch points on the board with your ICP, and more touch points lead to more profits because that is going to lead to more deal flow for your team. Focus on your circle of control. The work that you do, the content you create, who you work with, who you collaborate with, the stories that you tell, the partners that you bring on, your calendar, all of these things matter. And if you can do that, you will be 10 steps ahead of the competition. There is no question that right now we are going through one of the most important times in our industry lifetime. It's, in my opinion, probably the most important time in your career. It is the intersection of human and AI. It is the intersection of algorithms and people. And that intersection itself is a fascinating thing to watch. But there's only one thing that through all of it is going to matter. What's going to matter is whether or not the stories that you tell, the content you create, the messages you put out there, this brand infrastructure that you create, whether or not you produce assets that are helpful, whether or not you continue to educate yourself so within your organization, you can be helpful. That when you create things for your clients, when you create things for your customers, that the things that you create are helpful. And if you can do that, and you can follow in the footsteps of Fred Rogers and try to be a very helpful person on the internet, then this internet thing that we all get to play on every single day is going to be a neighborhood that is worth living in. Thank you so much for joining Intersection. I really appreciate all of you. I hope you enjoyed the presentations. Feel free to connect with myself, any Foundationite online. We would love to keep the conversations going. Enjoy the rest of your week. See you on the internet, and we will see you next time. We're sure we will do this again soon. Take care and have an amazing, amazing week. See y'all soon. Have a great one.